Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today, and this is my second show today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, or founder of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. Today at GSD, we have 176 companies representing 73 countries around the world. Nigeria, Ghana, Zambia, South Africa, Kenya, North Africa, Egypt, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Slovenia, Slovakia, all over Latin America, because everybody needs a chance to be able to go to unicorn status. And with that, I have an incredible guest today, Frank Saunders. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's the co-founder and CEO of SalesForge. He was with Prime Forge before that. He's a father of two. He brings his A game every day in digital, not your usual guy. Yukum Madur, the guy that makes things happen when his family or clients loves a challenge in such ways as predictive and market intelligence, demand generation, monetization, precision marketing, precision sales. Oh, I love this precision stuff. Coaching and sales strategy and revenue. So with that, I'd like to bring Frank on board. Hey, Frank.
Hey, Gary, how's it going?
Good. So I got a question for you. So you originally, we talked about it before the show, you're originally from Latvia. That is one of the most interesting countries, because you got on one side, you got a German flair. On another side, you have kind of a Swedish kind of thing. On another side, you've got a Russian thing. How is it? Like what? Because, when I lived in Riga, I lived in Jurmala for the summertime. I remember it's like, opposed to some countries, everything was perfect. Like the woodwork was like German kind of perfect. But on another side, you had kind of a Russian mentality, and the prices were good, right? The prices were a lot cheaper than the rest of Europe. At the same time, you had food that could, you had German food, you have Swedish food, you have Russian food, and you got a little something else. How was it living there? Did you like it?
Yeah, so you've got the, what we call the Russian bear next door to you. And, a lot of people get very sensitive, especially, when there's war going on, in Ukraine, which is not far away. So yeah, you got this flair, you got the a bit of influence from Sweden. You call typically Sweden the big brother to Latvia, the tiny country. And yeah, you got the Russians, and there's about, I would say, 30%, I think, of the population in Latvia are Russians, predominantly on the eastern front. But let's say half of Riga, the capital, is Russian, and you can hear that very clearly when you go to.
Oh yeah. No, I know, because I'd be walking around Riga and I would hear Russian speaking a lot of time. But yeah. I mean, quite frankly, people were pretty nice to me. I got to be honest with you; they were nice, and I must say, Jurmala was one of the nicest places that I've spent this summer.
Yeah, that's where all the tourists go. That's the number one spot, right? So next to the beach. And I'm from another tiny country, town called Ventspils, which is north.
Oh, I know Ventspils actually, because when I was down there back in 2015, 2016, I met some people that were highly placed in Ventspils, and no, it was nice actually. The whole place was nice. I can't say.
So you said it was cheap. It used to be cheap, but if you look at the inflation and everything, the price like skyrocketed. Now it's becoming very, very close to Nordics, actually, as expensive.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not as cheap as it used to be back.
I mean, it was so cheap. I rented an apartment down there in Jurmala. It cost me $700 or $800 for a month at the time, which was really inexpensive.
Yeah, but everything skyrocketed. I think it's definitely not as cheap anymore. The last kind of the last hit when it comes to kind of price skyrocketing was the war with Ukraine, which is still ongoing. So that massively hiked up the price on everything, properties and stuff like that.
Why is that?
To know, I mean, I don't know. The inflation is just going through the roof all across Baltics. So it's yeah. If you look at the charts when it comes to salaries and everything, prices going up. Like Baltics is the top takes the top spot in Europe, where everything became just a lot more expensive. So, when it comes to kind of in our business hiring engineers or people generally, we don't look at hiring people locally, just way too expensive. Also, it's very much a socialist state, so it's not like people like, let's say, in the Bay Area, that they would actually work their ass off, and understand that this is a startup and you have to work like in a Silicon Valley startup. So there's a gazillions of different problems, I would say, locally here. So we definitely have quite a mix when it comes to
Where are you right now? Are you in Latvia? Are you in the
I'm
UK?
actually in Lithuania right now. My wife's Lithuanian, so this.
Oh, I love. By the way, one of my favorite restaurants. You got to tell your wife this. If you haven't been there, you got to go. There's one that used to be the Indian consulate or embassy, and there's a Indian restaurant inside of there, and they make the best freaking chicken vindaloo I've ever had in my life. And they have ice cream that actually has orange pieces in it. It's the best tasting ice cream that I've had. It's like natural orange in this stuff. I mean, these people are like magicians. The rumor has it that the former chef of the Indian embassy or consulate was a person that bought the place and did I don't know if it's true, but it's really, really incredibly good, actually.
It's weird that you say that Indian food is good in this part of the world. I mean, typically when I want to have a good Indian takeaway, I'm just going to London because I lived there for over a decade. So that's where I would typically.
Yeah, no, London's good too. On Saturday nights, you get your curry, right? That's the curry place. So let's go down through. You've had a successful sales career, including time at Google. What inspired you to leave that path and launch Salesforce?
Yeah, good question. So, started my career at Google a long time ago. You typically work in Google Ads. That's the main sort of bread and butter, right, when it comes to revenue. And now Google Cloud is picking up steam as well. And then after that, I worked in a lot of software companies, SimilarWeb, BlackRow. And then in my last job, I was at a company called Watergraph. And then that's where essentially led a team of about 50. So I was always in frontline sales. So essentially selling a software for some cool CEO out there, very successful, raised a ton of money, selling the CEO, selling the software and the CEO as well, along the way. When I had my
always got to sell the CEO. That's part of being.
Yeah. I mean, because I always would bring him into my, top meetings all around the world. And some were very interesting meetings. So, let's say one of my jobs, I used to work at BlackRow, and BlackRow is a machine learning company. They sell machine learning as SaaS. And I was bringing my CEO, he's from US, originally from Canada, and into a meeting with the CMO of Aeroflot in Moscow. These were some interesting meetings, when North Americans chat to Russians over a call, about a piece of software. Anyway, so but when I was leading my sales team of 50, back a few years ago, when it was growth at all costs, I realized that why do we have such a large sales team, and why do other companies have such a large sales team when you know that so I used to hire hundreds of salespeople in my lifetime, and also fired hundreds of salespeople in my lifetime, and then I always thought to myself, hey, for every 10 salespeople, only one person is really natural. 2 to 3 people can be trained up to be somewhat good as the person that's natural, and then 60% is what typically I would call dead wood. So a lot of people that are in sales shouldn't be really in sales, but the reason why you're hiring all of them is because you have targets, right? When it comes to pipeline, attainment, the revenue attainment, right? So you're hiring these individuals, but they're not really accretive. They're just there because you need to hit the numbers, but they're not really good for your business. So typically, like 20 to 40% of the employees in sales drives the majority of revenue for your business. And then I thought to myself, why don't we have sort of a better process and tech stack for that, right? So why can't we just have significantly fewer heads, and significantly higher output levels, for the folks that are actually performing, and it's actually much better just to pay them more commission instead of hiring more people, right? More people is just more problems as well. So, and then you think about like the legacy tech that exists in the space, tech that has been built sort of 10 years ago. All of that tech in sales and kind of executing sales motions has been built with bigger teams in mind. So they charge typically per seat, and the way to typically, the things have worked back in the days is the bigger the team, the more revenue you make, right? And so on and so forth. And that's not the case anymore these days, especially over the last couple of years, when LLMs were introduced, there's a lot more automation that's going on, etc. and you're able to significantly, increase output levels with a significantly smaller team. And you see a lot of that in the Bay Area. And that's exactly the sort of, thing that I wish existed back in the days, and that's the software sort of stack that I'm building right now. Essentially, we have multiple softwares. We built 7 softwares in
And
the last 2 years.
you said one of the things you said is that um, that you've been profitable since day one. Can you tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, kind of, a brief story. So we scaled from 0 to $3 million in the first year, and then also from about 3 co-founders to 40 employees, and profitable always. Even though we did raise $500,000, which was a bit of a waste, but we thought we were going to burn. But the reason why we were profitable is
But
because we
that's the
always
point,
had this.
Frank. Let's talk about that, right? I've
Sure.
done this a long time, almost 40 years in the Valley, and a couple of billion-dollar companies. The reason is not to get the money. The reason is because of, let's talk about it. For the audience, we got a wide audience. The reason that you raise money is because of what? What's the holy grail?
So in our case, so we're first time founders, all 3 of us.
Mhm.
And back in the first, let's call it, few days, we thought to ourselves, hey, we want to, because we're first time founders, we want to de-risk this and want to really make it happen. So based on our assumption, whatever the forecast model said, we will burn cash. That's why we're raising, right? So, and it's not
But
because
it's not just the cash though. There's something else, Frank.
yeah, sure. It's not just the cash, but it's also because you're first time founders, you want to have people that come on the journey with you, right? That have done this or scaled companies, essentially, right? So,
Yeah.
And that would help us with our first business. And then it became, definitely, the question comes, how much do you need to raise, etc. But we thought with about $500,000, we definitely can get to product market fit and everything, and we thought, we're gonna generate X, so meaning we're gonna generate about $1 million in ARR within a year. Instead, we generated 3. So because we generated 3 and we didn't hire quickly enough, we just were always profitable. Plus, taking into consideration that most of our employees are in Europe, all scattered around, naturally the cost base is significantly lower than hiring folks in the US. So all kind of various other factors contribute to that. But also the way we run the company, we run using a PLG motion, so product-led growth, majority products apart from one called Agent Frank. So that's the AI SDR that we have. But we are very heavy also generally internally. We're implementing a lot of automations. Essentially, every week we're adding about 5 to 10 automations within the business to kill anything that's repetitive. So we do that on top of a platform called N8N. It's similar to Make or Zapier, if somebody knows. And so we're building gazillions of automation. So anything that I'm doing, multiple times a week, I'm going and telling my N8N guy to automate that in full or as much as possible. So like investing heavily into essentially automation helps us to reduce the pressure actually of hiring more people. So like it's kind of all of these things that you're doing to be definitely very efficient with your resources, right? So this is why we still didn't end up burning cash, and we want to do it as long as we can until we raise Series A essentially. But yeah, in the early days you definitely need these other people, smart people on board to help you to get to product market fit. Because the way I think about the first business, when you want to launch, failure is not an option. So if failure is not an option, what do you need to do to make sure you don't fail? Well, one of the ways to de-risk is raising a bit of money and getting very smart people on board, so that you can rely on.
Yeah, so raising the money. So there's 3 things, right? Networking, contacts, operational expertise, access to capital.
Yeah.
And if you have those 3 in a resilient team, for all of you out there, one of the things is, Silicon Valley is a hub to the rest of the world. It's a place where companies come in and out.
Yeah.
Why do they go there? Because you want to have cheerleaders that can help you, family offices, VCs, high net worth individuals. They become your greatest cheerleaders. In reality, 1% of the population has 99% of the wealth. You want to get them to be able to help you. And it's hard because it's like having a Ferrari in the garage. If you're in Vilnius or Riga or Memphis, Tennessee, or anywhere around, it's tough if you're not inside of the club, because in reality, it's like a club. It's like if I go to Riga, everybody knows everybody. You got what, 1.5 million people in the entire country, and people know everybody. right? Somebody's got a cousin that's dealing with somebody there, and probably have one in Lithuania too. And so you got to get inside of it. And once you're inside of that, what happens is you understand that those cheerleaders help guide your company of what it should be.
Yeah.
How to turn that company into a unicorn. You know, we've gone to Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Zambia, South Africa, Kenya, 73 countries we're in today. We have 176 companies inside of GSD, by the way. Why is that? Because intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but the opportunities are not. You know, the contacts, you know, in sales, right? The most important thing is developing that relationship with a customer. They care about you and you care about them. They know that you got their back. You're not going to do something bad just for the money. You're going to help them. And you know that if you sit on your hands and do it, right, and don't try to step over them, you're going to be successful. It's going to work. But if they don't trust you, then you destroy that relationship with them. And it's hard to ever get it back again. The idea is to create that club of those cheerleaders that can help you. And I see it all the time. You know, I started one of the first generative AI companies in 2016, 3 years before OpenAI. You know, we sold the company to a company in Canada. And when I built it, people said people weren't going to ever want to get into AI. It's 25 years too early. I said, you're wrong, because we're inundated with information. The sales process is inundated. Medicine is inundated. And the idea is, how can we take what we have and optimize it so we're successful in a very intelligent way, right? So that we're laser precise instead of a shotgun. That's the thing, right? You want to go. The salespeople are deployed in a shotgun approach, and that's not the way to do it. The way's in using that laser beam focus, because a laser beam gets it done. So, you know, you're going down through it, and, you know, how do you use AI to personalize cold emails at scale without compromising quality, Frank?
Good question. As I mentioned, we have like 7 softwares. So a few of them focus on one of the problems that's very important when it comes to delivering any emails is the deliverability. So the probability of essentially landing in the primary mailbox of your recipient. So it's becoming more and more difficult, especially with more policing by Google and Microsoft, etc. So we have literally just 3 products which provisions email infrastructure. So domains, mailboxes, which are purpose built for actually sending emails, cold emails to your prospect. And then
how do you get around like the banning that takes place for spamming? How do you get around that so your customers don't get banned?
Good question. So what happens today is, let's say you're a startup, and you just create your company, you go to YC, whatever, and then you spin up a company, and then you want to reach out to a lot of your prospects. And let's say you have 1,000 prospects, right? 1,000 companies you want to reach out to. The dilemma is when you're going to start sending these emails, right? That's unsolicited emails to other businesses. A lot of them will literally mark your email spam. And if you reach out to big companies like enterprise companies, a lot of them will also have anti-spam softwares like Barracuda, Mimecast, etc. And they can quickly block your domain from sending any further emails to all enterprise companies that you say use Barracuda, Mimecast. So it's very tough.
Have you ever seen that happen?
Yeah, I've seen that happen. Yeah, or every day.
How do you get around it?
Yes. So the only way to get around it is if you actually send a very low volume of emails for a domain. Now, you're not going to reach out to a lot of your time if you're going to just do that with your primary domain. And we typically say, hey, don't harm the reputation of your primary domain at all. So what we do is we set up these what we call secondary domains, so parallel domains on top of your primary domain. So let's say we have a domain, salesforce.com. And so what we would do is we would set up these secondary domains like trysalesforce.com or getsalesforce.com or teamsalesforce.com. So these are the domains that you would set up. So that's what we do for the customers. And then against them, we would set up like 2 or 3 email accounts. So we're essentially diluting the sending across more domains, more email accounts. And that's the infrastructure that we'll actually use to reach out to the prospect. So that's one of the things that really needs to happen. And then the other things that really needs to happen to improve your deliverability is making sure that your content is as unique for every single recipient as possible, because Google uses, for example, today Gemini, so its own large language model, to scan for the content within the emails. And when Google sees that this domain receives a lot of spam reports, for example, and then what it does is it checks the copy. And when it sees there's the same copy that's being circulated across the board, across other Gmail accounts, then you start landing spam, not because of your domain, not because of your IP address, but simply because of the static content, so that templated content that you keep on sending to all your prospects. So what I'm a big believer in, what's happening already right now, we're calling what we call the depth to templates, and we're going to see a lot more programmatic communication going on. That means every individual will receive an email that's crafted to them, and we're already seeing a lot of that these days by different companies, not just us, but essentially companies that are really doing a good job around personalizing the email. So the way that we do it within Salesforce, our core product, whether you do that through humans or AI agents, something that we also can do, is we look at what you sell as a business. So you outline your value prop within the software. You can also upload documents about your business, like a sales playbook, pricing, FAQs. There are good context about your business. And then for every recipient that we would reach out, we go and crawl the web. So what we would know about Gary Fowler. So we're going to go and access his LinkedIn profile. We'll go access the website and other bits of information on the web. And then we would stitch these data sets together. And then this is where we apply AI on top of that. And we'll send an email to Gary, whether that's in English, Latvian, whatever you name it. We have multiple languages that we support. So that's what we call programmatic way of kind of communicating with customers. It's naturally writing an email would take you probably 10, 15 minutes typically on average. But that's not something that a human would typically do. And yeah, so if somebody wants to check it out, you can go just to agentfrank.ai. You can type in your email address, your LinkedIn, and you'll get an email. So yeah, that's something that we do at scale by using our infrastructure, by using our ability to computer copy. And if you're using an AI agent, then the AI agent actually can communicate back and forth with the prospect and actually book a meeting within the software. So this is also another thing that we're big believers in, how the economy will change over time, is that within a single software environment, doesn't matter whether it's in sales, accounting, whatever you name it, we're going to see more and more humans working with the AI agents in tandem in one single software to increase output levels and drive down cost per unit. So in our case, the unit cost could be, demo booked, for example, right? That's something that we look at. How can we drive down the cost? Well, we know that labor, salespeople are very expensive, right? And the cost will just keep on growing. Right? So the problem is there, like what's we call the CAC problem, the cost of customer acquisition. The biggest bulk of the cost for tech companies is labor. So that's why we, when we think about building our software stack, how can we build it in a way that reduces, the headcount? And the only way to do that, so one of the things that needs to happen is definitely implementing the agenda capabilities, but we definitely would never discount the humans. So why would that's the case? So for example, in the US and in Europe, AI agents are banned to be used, say, for cold calling. So then, for example, we know that when it comes to cold calling, we can only apply humans. So that's an example of why you would blend these, humans and AI agents, because for whatever reason, whether that's legislation or some other reasons, right, you will still need to have humans there, going after that specific task, calling your prospects, right? So, whereas, for example, on inbound, you can definitely use AI calling. You just can't do it on outbound, right? So that's also why do we have the necessity? But yeah, I don't believe in what we call human-only softwares. So these are the legacy companies that we're sort of going after, because it's just not. You're not gonna solve what we call the CAC problem, so the cost of customer acquisition, without essentially architecting the software in a way that can, where you can implement the AI agents that will reduce, headcount, etc. So it needs to be really built from ground up. That's why the legacy companies have a really hard time and they're not doing really well these days.
No, it's fantastic, Frank. This is going by really, really fast. So, let's spend another 5 minutes. Sure. Tell us, your closing thoughts and what kind of companies are you looking to work with? What's your sweet spot? And then what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Good question. So we predominantly, most of our customers, about 70% are in the US. So we typically work with majority of the folks in the US. Typically, you are a tech company, somewhere between 10 employees to 500 employees, somewhere in that range. That's where you do really well. And typically, you have quite a big TAM. And the reason why big TAM is a sweet spot for us is because when you have the bigger the TAM, the more you think about essentially hiring more salespeople, essentially, right? And this is where we come into play, right? If your TAM is tiny, like 1,000, let's say, companies, you don't even need that much tech. When I was in enterprise sales, I didn't have any tech, a part of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So yeah, when you have a big TAM, when you think about hiring more salespeople, this is where we tell you to stop. When you tell you about, you need to rethink how you acquire.
And how much can you save somebody? Let's give them, give the audience, tell them what kind of savings. Is it 70%, 90%, 50%? What can they expect?
Sure. So our goal as a business is to help folks reduce headcount by up to 40 to 60%. Now it sounds very ambitious, but generally speaking, if you would compare, let's say, just an AI agent, the cost of an AI agent is about 10-20% versus what you would pay to a typical human. Now, as I said, you can't really fully replace a human using AI agents, but by augmenting, right, by blending the agents with humans, you can definitely reduce costs significantly. So I would say cost reduction there is probably 20 to 40%, which is reasonable and realistic to achieve. And our biggest customers are actually the ones that have the lowest headcount. So it definitely does work. And that's something that these are the sort of systems that we implemented across many of our customers. We have thousands of them by now.
Now it sounds like you're moving in the right direction. So, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Frank?
Probably the best way is on LinkedIn, Frank Saunders, the guy with the bacon emoji. If somebody's wondering what bacon means, it comes from bringing home the bacon. So we're all about that. Naturally, as we sell the software to the salespeople. And so yeah, LinkedIn, and then if you go to Salesforce.ai, you can check out Agent Frank, and you can check out the human part. But there's also other softwares that you may find of value.
I appreciate taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us. If you hang on after we're done with the show, we can talk for a few minutes. And thanks for all of you for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. We'll be back to you again with another exciting edition. Take care, everybody. Talk to you again soon. Thanks, Frank.